This incident occurred about 20 years ago in Mishikawa, Indiana, when I was only 9. Our house was built in 1904, so it had the huge solid oak doors in trim. The living room was very long, with ceilings which are 12 feet high. I hope you got the idea of the architecture of this house. The basement was a full one, divided into 2 rooms, and this is where most of the presents seemed to be. I'll get to that later. Back to the house though. The master bedroom was downstairs, with its entrance being oak sliding doors. All of the fixtures were of the early 1900s also, so the living lights were hanging chandeliers, one at each end of the living room. The upstairs had 3 bedrooms, with a landing at the top with a banister guarding the stairs. The stairs were enclosed and curved, and this will be important in a minute. The house upstairs wasn't insulated well, so in the winter it was cold, and in the summer, hot. As a consequence, my 2 brothers and I slept on the pull-out couch downstairs. One night, my younger brother and I went upstairs to get ready for bed, and as we were going down the stairs, I looked back up due to the feeling something was there, and I saw an apparition coming towards us. I screamed and told my brother to look up. He did, and saw the same, so we flew down the rest of the stairs and yelled at our parents to go look for the man. They did, and of course, nothing was there. Now, let me describe the ghost. He was not opaque, he was complete in his form, and he was dressed in Catholic priest clothes. I noticed this because we're not Catholic, but my friend next door was, and I visited her church just down the road. I thought this was very peculiar, but what I thought was even more peculiar was the fact he was holding a gun, and he pointed it directly at us, or so what I thought was a gun. Of course, my parents told us we were young, and had very vivid imaginations, and it was nothing. Years later, however, my mother confessed that she knew the house was haunted, and also because when she was the only one home, she would hear something walking up the stairs and on the stairs. We always had German shepherds, and our dog would growl at the ceiling and would never go in the basement. Now, onto the basement. I knew there was a presence here in the back room where the water heater was, because it was much colder, and felt wrong. It felt evil and bad, and didn't want anyone there, because it felt you, and you just had to leave immediately. I want to say that the upstairs didn't have this feeling to it, even though this is where we saw the man. I'm not sure of the history of this house, and soon after this incident, we moved to Florida on my dad's company transfer. I just want to give my opinion on this. After researching different types of hauntings, I feel that this was a replay of some kind, and I was a witness to it. I do feel that there might have been more than one presence, because the evil in the basement was different than the other, and the one in the basement didn't want anyone there. He did other things to give us this feeling. Mostly, the noises were harmless and no bother to us, but it was the basement that we avoided for whatever reason. I would love to hear what you all think of this, and the type of haunting you feel it is. I used to spend a lot of nights driving around in my youth. I was young and reckless, and had no clear direction in life, so I'd often find myself aimlessly driving, late at night. I'd spent a majority of my adolescent years dependent on drugs, and unfortunately, almost succumbed to an overdose. I was harming others, but most importantly, I was on a path to self-destruction. The night before my overdose, I had a creepy paranormal experience that, fortunately for me and those around me, changed my entire life for the better. It was another one of those late night drives. I'd gotten into a verbal altercation with my parents. Words that weren't meant to be said were exchanged, and I ended up running away from home. I took the keys and headed out driving for hours until I ended up in an unfamiliar town. I was starting to get a little exhausted, was 6 hours away from home and was running low on gas. What happened next will always be embedded into my subconscious for the rest of my life. I pulled up to a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Now, like I said, this area was completely isolated from the rest of the world. It had a last house on the left kind of feel. Until I ended up at the gas station. I'd driven past miles and miles of just cornfields and farmland. Woods all around, nobody in sight. I ended up walking to the gas station and bought myself a pack of cigarettes from the station attendant. He noticed I looked a little confused and asked if I was lost. I said yeah, I was. This was before GPS and cell phones, and I didn't have a map with me. He told me there was a bridge in the distance that was visible from the gas station less than a mile or so away, but said if I crossed it, I could pass another town nearby and find a highway that could take me back home. I thanked him, pumped my gas, and went driving towards the bridge. As I started to make my way through this road, and on my way through the bridge, rain started to pour down, and I could barely see through my windshield. It had rained so much that it almost obscured my vision, and there was no source of light anywhere along the dirt road I was traveling on, except for my headlights. The guy at the gas station told me the bridge was very close by, and even though I could see it in the distance before it started raining hard, it felt like it had been forever before I could see it. Just then, I finally came across the bridge, despite the downpour. This is the part that really startled me. I was driving across the bridge, absolutely nobody in sight, no other cars. It was late at night, 3 a.m., and nothing but trees and bushes scattered around the bridge. I kept driving across this long bridge, and that's when my headlights shined onto this small child who suddenly appeared within my field of vision. All I could remember was that his eyes were glowing, almost like an animal in the night. I was unable to stop in time, and I thought I had hit him. I immediately panicked, stopped the car in the pouring rain, got out to check to see if he was okay, and the kid was nowhere to be found. It confused the hell out of me, because again, what kid would be playing around in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and in the pouring rain? I didn't even hear a thud, or any noise besides the sound of the rain falling down on my car at the moment of impact. I looked under the car. It was as if this child didn't even exist. I remember distinctly that the boy was wearing overalls and a hat. It looked like a completely real boy. There was no mistaking that this was a human. Now, I mentioned my recklessness and drug abuse because this incident caused me to turn my life completely around. I was so worried that I accidentally hit a child, and it may have ran off into the woods, that it made me swear to always be alert and never fight with my parents again. This happened when my brother was around 5 years old. It was around 2 a.m., and he went into my parents' room to get in bed with my mom. My mom's bed was right by one of the bathroom doors. The door on the other end of the bathroom led to where the back door was, and the stairs to the basement. He got in bed and was facing the bathroom. He got scared and woke up my mom and asked who the little girl in the bathroom was. He said he had never seen her before. He told my mom that she was just standing there, staring at him. My mom said the way he was talking, like there was really someone there, it really scared her. She said she just rolled over and shut her eyes. She was too scared to even look. I don't think a 5-year-old imagines things like that. While we were in the same house, my mom's cousin was hunting in the mountains and accidentally fell on his gun and killed himself. The family thinks he came back to say bye because it was such a sudden death. A few days after he died, when we were all in bed, a light in the hallway bathroom would click on and off. It was an older house, so the switch made a really loud click when he turned it on and off. My mom would be sitting on the couch late at night, with her back facing the hallway. You can sometimes feel when someone is behind you, and she said she heard me breathing hard and walking up the hallway. She called my name and turned around, and no one was there. At the same time, at her cousin's parents' and sister's house, similar things were happening. His old toys from when he was younger were stored in the basement of his parents' house. One night his electric train turned on. It was going around the track. No one knew this was happening to other family members until my mom called his parents and told them what was happening to her. The next day they went somewhere and tried to contact them. They all said they loved him and it was time for him to move on. They think he was trying to contact the family because he died suddenly. After they talked to him, everything stopped. The following happened back in July 1995. Me and a friend traveled around the UK by train. It was about 4 p.m. Then we checked in at a bed and breakfast in Manchester. All double room was occupied, so we got the 2 single rooms, which was located next to each other. We were quite tired after a long day trip by train, so we rest for a moment. Later we went out to eat something, had a beer in the hotel bar, and then headed up to the rooms for sleeping. The time was about 11 p.m. I closed the Vatican blind, turned off the light, and almost immediately fell asleep. The room was pitch dark. Then, after about 2 hours, I woke up and found the room bathed in light. The light almost blinded me. I had a strong emotion to walk towards the window, just like I was enforced to do so, and then I went up. I heard voices and music, like old folklore or something. The voices was only like a murmur, so I actually couldn't hear what it says. It was like being in a full-up restaurant or a pub or something. I was not actually scared, but it was an uneasy and confusing experience. Then, I reached the window and opened the Venetian blind. Everything turned to normal again, quiet and pitch dark. I went back to bed again, and to my surprise, I fell asleep after only about 10 minutes. The morning after, we met up and headed down the stairs for breakfast. Afraid of being regarded as a fool or jackass, I told him it was only a dream. Then, I almost dropped my coffee pot when he told me that the exact same thing happened to him. He has always been quite skeptical to the paranormal things, but I think this experience has changed his mind a bit. I would be very glad if you could give me your opinion. I have apprehension about what really happened that night. I know I was fully awakened, and it can't be my imagination, because the same thing happened to him. As I said in a previous mail, I'm not so good with English, so I hope you understand me. You may publish my story if you want, but you better circumscribe it before. Hi there, my name's Joe. My friend Colin probably wrote you recently about some recent activity. For the past I don't know how many years, I've been able to feel, and to an extent see ghosts. I can sense what they are feeling and what their intentions are. However, for about 3 years, my friend Colin started having sleeping problems. I already knew his house was haunted, but what was haunting it was the spirit of what I think is a 5-year-old child. For Christmas the year before, a friend of ours that lived in Thailand sent us all gifts. However, Colin was the one that received a house that you would leave tokens and gifts in to help ward off evil spirits. Over time, it stopped doing that. Trapped in the house was some kind of creature, like a demon. It was huge, dark, and very menacing. I still don't know how to use all of my abilities very well, but at the time, I sure as hell didn't, but I attempted this anyway. We attempted to destroy the house, and everything in it. It took 45 minutes just to get it to catch fire. During this 45 minutes, I was attempting to immobilize the creature inside the house. After 45 minutes, I was able to trap it, by pure luck. After I trapped it, I was able to see what was being stored in the house. It was a large field, fire everywhere, dead bodies on fire, blood everywhere. It reminded me of what hell would look like when described to you as a child. After that, I was drained. I couldn't do much of anything. I thought I lost all my abilities, but after 2 months they started coming back, very slowly. I knew this only because I was able to see the ghost in Colin's house again. While I was living in Korea, I encountered a few spirits, but they were by chance and left over from the war. That was when I knew my abilities were back to full, but I wanted to learn how to better use them, and I'm not having any luck. Well, to end the story on a bad note, last week my friend Jess asked about any ghost encounter any of us have had, so Colin and I talked about this one. So Jess got curious and wanted to see where it happened. Reluctantly, we took him there. Surprisingly enough, development has been going on in the area for the last 5 years, but at the spot where we destroyed the house, nothing is built. We went to the spot, and I was able to feel it out from residue from when we first destroyed it, but after a few minutes, it wasn't just that. The feeling I was getting became stronger until it made me sick. I almost passed out, and I doubled over dry heaving. It turns out it was still trapped there until that night. Somehow, it got loose. I don't know how or why, but now I have to get rid of it for good, and I don't know how. In 1989, I moved into a government apartment in a small town containing 7 units. The last apartment was occupied by a single mom with a small child and her boyfriend. The previous year, they, man and woman, were murdered and shot to death in their bed, in their first bedroom by the woman's estranged ex. No one wanted to move into the apartment because of the history surrounding the apartment. I was a young mother and had 2 children and needed a place to live, and thought nothing of this. In time, I was told of the strange happenings of the place and chalked it up to superstition or small-minded people with too much time on their hands. Things were pretty quiet for me and my little ones for the first few months. Then small things started to occur. Light over the sink area in my kitchen would mysteriously come on in the middle of the night. Being the only adult in the house, and the only person who would actually reach the switch, this had me worried that I had an electrical short or something, and promptly had it checked out. Nothing. Perfectly normal. Kitchen cabinet doors would be halfway open in the mornings when I awoke. I scolded my oldest daughter, 7 years at the time, for climbing the counters and getting snacks out, and she told me that she was asleep and she didn't do it. My youngest daughter, 2 years old at the time, was starting to make a habit of getting up in the middle of the night and getting into bed with me. Very unusual for her. She's a hard sleeper. At one point, I was having trouble sleeping, so much so, to the point I went to a doctor and got sleeping medication, all to no avail. I always woke up at 3 a.m. and had a difficult time getting back to sleep. Nothing worked until I rearranged my bedroom furniture and moved my bed from one end of the room to the other. Once, while my oldest daughter was visiting her grandmother overnight, myself and my youngest daughter decided to take a bubble bath together in the late evening. While we were in the tub, I heard jingle bells rattling around in the cup on a shelf not 5 feet from me. All of my windows were closed, and no one else was in the house. Couldn't explain it at the time. After 3 years, I chose to move in with a man to a better neighborhood. My landlord chose that time to tell me the complete history of my apartment. He showed me the newspaper articles on what happened, and after reading all of them, I understood all. The ex climbed through the bathroom window and shot them both dead at 3 a.m. and took the child, which was sleeping between the two. Her bed was in the exact position as I had my bed when I couldn't sleep. The mom was a stay-at-home mom and was always in the kitchen fixing stuff for her little child, making homemade cookies, snacks, and such. She always left the kitchen sink light on for her boyfriend when he came in late at night. My daughter always getting into my bed late at night was quickly understood by me. The other bedroom was never used by the child. She always slept with her mother and the boyfriend. No other tenants have reported any activity in this unit. Of course, they didn't have a small or female children either. Time will tell if this ghost will ever find peace or her final rest. Before moving out, the last night there, I made my peace with her and told her I understood why she did the things she did. I understand she wasn't trying to scare me or my little girls, and I wished her peace. One afternoon of 1995 or 96, I was dusting our bedroom, the master bedroom, in our apartment. Right beside our bedroom was a small hallway leading up to the bathroom into the other bedroom. I remember being in a very good mood. I'd been doing a few changes in the decoration of the bedroom and was now dusting. I was happy with the results, and as I was dusting, I was talking about the changes with my husband, or what I thought was my husband, standing in the hallway. All smiling and happy, I started to tell him, or what I thought was him, "Hey Frankie, look at what I've just done. Isn't that nice?" I advanced in the hallway to bring him in the bedroom, and as I neared him, he disappeared. I nearly jumped. Now, as I was dusting, I happened to turn my head towards the hallway, which was on my right, and there stood a man who very much looked like my husband and who was dressed in modern clothes, a short and a t-shirt. When I saw him, I was sure he was my husband. That is when I started talking to him, and as I was cheerily and happily explaining the changes to him, he had this most beautiful smile of encouragement. He seemed to be happy for me. What a surprise when I realized that I had been speaking to someone or something else than my husband, and when I saw it, it disappeared. It is when this being disappeared that I realized that my husband was lying on the couch and watching TV. He was very surprised when I told him what happened. I live in Australia, and I've been seeing spirits ever since I was about 2 years old. My first experience was just after my grandmother's death. I was visiting her grave for the first time, and then all of a sudden, I started hearing voices. They were telling me to leave, that it was too dangerous for them and me if I stayed, that I had to run and never turn around. It is weird that I remember it, although my memory is not as clear as my mother's, but I remember most of the details. I know that this is pretty hard to believe, but I give you my word it is true. Although I think about it now and realize that I wasn't scared, at the time I knew that I had to leave, so I told my mom and dad, and we left. My dad didn't believe me, but my mom did. Since then, I've had many experiences with spirits, all of which have been good, except for one. This happened when I was 15. I'd been roped into a swimming carnival, and I can't swim too good, so I was practicing in my pool. The pool is down the very back, and you can't see the house from the pool, as it is behind a shed. I've often seen spirits down the back, but it has never worried me. It was getting late, and I've been swimming for a while, so stopped for a break. Whilst I was standing in the middle of the pool, I seen a baby sitting on the fence that surrounds the pool. I tried to look away, but I was in a trance. I finally stopped looking at it, but it was good, as I was suddenly dragged under the water. I struggled for about 2 minutes, before it would let go. When it finally did, I ran inside. I told my mom, and she never believed me, but I've never been down there on my own ever since. My name is Evan, and my friend's name is Scott. We're making a trip to North Carolina for a concert in August of 1996. After the concert, we drove for a long while, finally making it to South Carolina, and we're in need of a place to camp, as it was getting pretty late. We found the Kings Mountain State Park entrance, but being almost 2 a.m., the gates was locked. We both got out of the VW camper to see if we could get the gate open. The road was completely deserted, and being at the entrance, we were not even close to any campsites. With the headlights of the camper as our only source of light, a woman appeared out of nowhere. She had dark hair, thin white dress, and was barefoot. She asked us if we were with the wedding party, and we replied that we were not. As quickly as she appeared, she was gone. Scott and I thought it was kind of weird. No evidence of another car on the road, and the fact that she was barefoot in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. in the morning. Entertaining the thought that we may have had an encounter with a ghost, we forgot about it. Recently, I was reminded of the incident and thought I'd surf the web to see if there was documentation of some similar experience. When I found your site, I was blown away when I found an entry for Kings Mountain State Park and the woman in the white dress. The entry said that she was murdered by the Klan for marrying a black man. I wonder if they were married right before the murder, and that's why she asked us if we were the wedding party. Hey Phantoms, welcome to the relationship of life, where things happen and people get relationships. And they have relationships with ghosts, they have relationships with their wives, they have relationships with their girlfriends or boyfriends. I'm not trying to be sexist, but guys, I don't know what I'm talking about. Happy birthday to myself, that's December 6th. There's no birthday. Guys, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm so sorry that I took a long time to get a video out for you guys, but this is a little bit of a longer video, so you guys should be happy. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot of good stories here, stories that you'll appreciate, stories that you'll love. So please, guys, give me a hug in the comment section. I need a lot of hugs and a lot of love and a lot of gratitude. I don't know what that means. Just, go ahead and comment, like, share, and subscribe. I missed you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Love ya, bye-bye, and I'll see you again soon.